Hello, my name's Pete Sand. I'm honored to be asked to host the debut episode of the I Love Des Moines podcast with Chris Coleman. What we hope will be a regular conversation about our great city and how to make it better still, with Chris Coleman, who knows the city like none other. He's my best friend, was the best man at my wedding, and he's a current candidate to rejoin the city council. Chris Coleman.
I'm very thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled. The month I've had being out in the community makes me more excited than ever to return to the council and make good things happen.
Well, I look forward to that and hope to be a regular part of that exchange of ideas and conversation. But obviously, we're in the heat of election season for city councils in Iowa, so it makes sense that our first episode focus on that and on your campaign for the council. Can you start by giving me some of the big concepts you stand for,
Yeah.
and then we can get more specific?
I think campaigns are about ideas, and what people will make a priority here are mine. Community, civility, responsibility, and security. Those are forefront in all the planks of what I hope to do, and those are my four big words.
Okay, let me jot that down. One more time.
Community, civility, security, and responsibility.
Okay, give me just like one or two sentences about community.
Well, community is important because that's why we form a government. We want to bring people together and make the fact that we're all citizens, we want to make that better. And I particularly like to focus my time and energy and vision around all the places that we gather to celebrate community. And that's something the city does really well. You know, our parks and public places where we celebrate families, where we celebrate the diversity and the different cultures of our community, and where we have fun and recreate. Parks are really important to me, and I see that as kind of a place that tells the story of what I want Des Moines to feel like.
Okay, and then civility, a couple sentences about what you mean by that?
Let's face it, I was embarrassed to watch the council many nights as, you know, people swore and fought and, you know, shouted down other speakers. I think the council has a responsibility to model civility. It's been a personal kind of mission of mine to be a good model of responsibility and civility. And I look forward to doing that. I try and treat everybody with a lot of respect. And on the campaign trail, I think everybody would agree that I try and find things that I like in others, that I have in common with others, and that's the way I try to start to solve problems, by working with people because we can find common ground, not focused on the ways that we're different.
And how about security?
Well, security in our town is really important. We have to do a good job helping our citizens feel safe. And, you know, through a period of time where, you know, slogans and fights and all this have kind of hurt our first responders, our paramedics, our firefighters, our police officers, I'm going to stand with them. They've committed their career and their life to protecting us. I'm proud, you know, not everybody thinks I should say this, but I'm proud to have the support of the police union and the fire union that are, you know, hundreds of people strong, men and women out on the streets trying to keep us safe, keep us healthy, keep us alive. And the police and fire are important, but that's not the only way we keep our city safe. You know, we have to have parks that are active. We have to have, you know, streets that are safe. We have to have housing and affordable housing that give homeless and low-income folks a chance to get off the street. There's a million ways to make this community safer, and we have to make that the forefront every time we spend money or make a decision. Is this making our city safer?
And then the last thing you mentioned was responsibility as a concept. What do you mean by that?
That's important in the people that you elect, because everybody sacrifices to make the services of the city available. And I want to show responsibility and respect to the taxpayer. I want our budget to stay balanced. I want to make sure that we provide a return on their investment in the city, that people feel good about the city when they drive up and down the streets, that when they go to a park, the park equipment works. That when they're downtown, they feel like the city's investing in the right things to make it safe and lively. That when people come in from out of town, they feel like they're proud of the city that they live in, and that's what I mean by responsibility. We have to use the taxpayers' money in ways where they can feel and sense that they live in a great community.
Okay. So if I got this right, community, civility, security, responsibility.
That's right.
Got it. Okay. Before we put a little more meat on those bones or drywall on that frame or however you want to put it, maybe you could just...
Ice on that bourbon.
Exactly. Maybe you could just refresh the memories of our listeners. I mean, I know the story because you and I do, go out to lunch and talk a lot about life, but that's not everybody gets to enjoy that side of you. So maybe you could just kind of remind us a little bit about what is your personal connection with Ward 1 of the city of Des Moines?
Yeah, well, I'm almost emotional over this because you mentioned that I was on the city council, but I had a different job. I was at large. You got to sink your teeth into the budget and the landfill and, all this kind of other stuff. Know the sewer
You didn't
system.
actually sink your teeth into the landfill.
Well, no, I never sunk my teeth into the landfill, but I sweated the details of the landfill, and I think we made it better, and the garbage service much better in Des Moines. But all your duties when you're at large are different. Being the Ward 1 council member would be the thrill of a lifetime to represent and fight for the residents. My life story can be traced all the way through Ward 1. I was born in a hospital in Ward 1. All of the homes I grew up in and have raised my family have been in Ward 1. My 2 professional jobs, I worked at the United Way and the Better Business Bureau, has been in Ward 1. I worship in Ward 1, and my kids, played soccer and Little League and basketball, enjoyed the city. We love this part of the city, of the world, and I think whether you're in River Bend or Chautauqua or Drake or Merle Hay or Beaverdale, you get to live in one of the greatest areas in the world, and we should celebrate that. And to have a chance to represent those and fight every day for the people that built me is something that I can't wait to do.
Did you go to school in Ward 1?
I did go to school in Ward 1. Did I skipped educated. I did.
Well, you've been talking about a special school in some recent talks you've given.
A special school?
The Ron.
Oh,
Coleman.
yes. I like to, thank you. I like to give my father credit. So I've tried to sneak into the Register articles they've been writing that I attended the Ron Coleman School of Common Sense, which is, a degree that's really invaluable. And, it probably is important to say as I trace my life story, what you see is what you get here. I'm going to be straight with everybody. I'm not trying to impress anybody. You'll probably wish I, showed up at meetings with fancier clothes on and a better haircut. I give myself my own haircuts. So
It shows. But never mind.
yeah, usually people are like, "What hair?" I'm a pretty common sense guy, and if I make decisions or champion issues that the average taxpayer doesn't understand and doesn't care about, I'm making a mistake.
Mm-hmm. Ron's still in the ward, keeping an eye on you.
Yes, he is. In fact, as we came to this podcast, I talked to him on the way here, and he still continues to have a lot of advice for his oldest son.
I bet. Now, you mentioned that you had worked at the United Way and for the Better Business Bureau. Can you just tell us a little bit about how those jobs have kind of shaped you and affect how you would approach service on the council?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I've really had. Can I add one job to it?
Yeah,
Care
sure.
if you can't stop me. My first job out of college, I went to Appalachia, Kentucky, and I got this bug of watching these families climb their way out of poverty and build a life for themselves somewhere in Kentucky. And I saw many times more never figure it out or have the help they needed to kind of build a new life. When I lived there, it was the poorest county in the United States and deep in Appalachia, Kentucky. And I got this bug to start to figure out why do some families thrive? Why do some government policies work? And why do others not? It led me to return to Iowa and work at the United Way, where I got to see the best companies in the Des Moines area, working with the best charities in Des Moines area to partner all the knowledge, skill, and expertise and manpower, person power, to solve the community's most pressing problems. And I got to see the community from the inside, the problems and the obstacles that people had as they went to all the agencies that provide that basic safety net for people. And I learned that government should be, about being on the side of people who really can't do things on their own. Nobody's going to build a park and mow it on their own dime. Nobody's going to provide streets and sewers. Nobody's going to hire a police force. We collectively do things to solve community problems, and I love doing that. The last phase of my career, at least to this point, has been with the Better Business Bureau, and I feel like I have one of the best jobs in Iowa. I get to travel around and speak to people about scams and problems that consumers, especially the elderly, that are just ravaged by scam artists and really bad actors from around the world. But most of our time is spent trying to mediate problems, learning how to create win-win situations when different people have an argument. And that's what we do best. And I know that those skills are what will help me be successful at the council table and as we work on problems in neighborhoods and as we bring businesses back to these neighborhoods. I can bring people together, focus in on the win-wins, and make real good things happen.
We have a great business community in this town, don't we?
Oh, it is absolutely the secret sauce of what has made Des Moines a special place for all of us. And not only are they generous to create kind of the safety net and social services, but they're good employers. They pay their people well. They've been strong. We have countless companies, where somebody invested, their savings when they were 30 and now they're millionaires because, so many of them have done so well, fueled by good employees that make Des Moines neighborhoods great.
And they just have a great way of creating, business community.
Right.
We got the partnership, there are Rotary clubs, there's all kinds of great organizations
Exactly.
that help, kind of train up the next round of folks, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we've watched, great people invest in things that make our community really special, and as we look about a more diverse people coming to America coming to Des Moines from all over the world, it's exciting to see that, some of our, most fortunate residents are thinking about how do we make this a soccer town too? How do we build out new sports and activities in all of our parks? I love driving by Tower Park and the other parks and watching people from around the world play games that I'm not even sure I know what they are. I know I can't play them, but it's just remarkable. And then people fund and say we got to make that work. These people from Burma or anywhere around the world.
I think it's Myanmar, but go ahead.
Yes, well now it is, but our residents here came from
right.
Burma, and so it is. It's just great that we have great, generous people that make good things happen.
And the small businesses too. Isn't it exciting just to see how many international grocery stores we have these days?
That's right.
It's exciting.
I know that there's a lot of people that feel like there's food deserts around Des Moines, and I do too. It's a priority of mine in this ward. I also recognize that we have to, say that there's cultural grocery stores around the whole community that serve this diverse population that we have, and those are really valuable.
Yeah.
It's those kinds of small grocery stores, pharmacies, coffee shops, ice cream parlors
Car repair.
Car repair. Those are the things that we need more of in the neighborhoods that have kind of been left behind.
Yeah.
Because when you get that kind of economy and people gathering, it makes things safer, a key component of everything I think about. But it also just makes living there more enjoyable.
Yeah. We have a great nonprofit community too, don't we?
We do. We're very lucky, and again, we have great professionals in that sector, but you know what makes it great? The businesses and the business owners and the citizens that serve on the board and make sure they're accountable and responsible.
Very true. Okay, so we mentioned it a couple of times that you did serve on the council previously, right?
I did. I loved it.
And then you stepped away from it for several years.
I did.
Well, first, I want to talk about your past service and maybe a couple things that really stand out as, things you would like people to know that you were involved in during that past service, and then talk about what you may have learned in your time away from the council. I'm sure that gave a different perspective.
Yeah.
So about the prior time on the council, what really stands out in your memory is things that you thought were really cool, that maybe the public didn't know the whole backstory.
Yeah. Well, the 100 things that I am most proud of, very few people would know, because it's a citizen that called me that needed help or felt like the city was abandoning them. They needed to get the right person out to their property or their business. That, the political industry calls that constituent services. And, I really just kind of say it's caring about other people. I was in a position to help people. When you're a council person, you're lucky because, people at City Hall will listen to you. If you're the one making the call, people will follow up. They'll return calls. The business community would respond to me. And so I took that honor of people listening to me very, very genuinely, and I used it a lot to benefit others. And I love doing that. I love that kind of quiet, nobody really knows, but somebody really deserves government on their side, and I tried to deliver it. I loved watching the people who would say, well, I never really did anything because people say you can't fight City Hall. And I would say, I'll fight City Hall with you. We'll go do it. So those were my favorite things. Things that people would know. One of the big accomplishments that I had when I was an at-large council is the transformation of the East Village. When I was first elected, I was the only council member to go to these planning meetings in the old McCoy building down there, and then across the street at the Teach-Out building. This area was about as dilapidated as any area could be. At the time, it was going to be the gateway. You had West Gateway and East Gateway, and I was a new person, and they asked me to be on the committee, and pretty soon I had a lot of influence over the way it all happened. Those early ideas, everybody stayed true to. We didn't let big companies move there and create big campuses or 30-story buildings. Mm-hmm. We had a plan. It was fueled by a lot of really smart people. By the way, Des Moines is really lucky that Iowa State architects are 30 miles away. We get some of the best thinking and planning of any city in America because of them. And they were influential in the East Village. And to see, I was at a groundbreaking ribbon cutting tonight for the Market District, which is continuing the East Village further south. This is the real, I think, shining star of the last 20 years, and I'm very proud to have been involved in it from the beginning. The other side of the gateway became the Papa John Sculpture Park, mm-hmm. which is, it started with this very basic idea that all these places in the suburbs were building lakes and then like office buildings around the lake. Mm-hmm. And, somebody's like, well, in a downtown, how do you build a lake? And, smart people, not me, would say, you build something cooler than a lake. And so we did. The idea of the sculpture park, that kind of revitalized area with the beauty of the art, was kind of Des Moines' pushback to these, suburban corporate campuses that have a lake and buildings around it. And we succeeded in doing something cooler. That was really important.
I call it Selfie Park because that's what everybody does down there, including me.
Well, there's some beautiful, cool stuff, and you're an art lover. I mean, there's some really good stuff that people from around the country and around the Midwest come to see. I mean, we're lucky. We can't take that for granted. The other things that I would say that I'm really proud of, and I know I'm talking too loud, is a real strong commitment to streets and sewers. When I've watched people go through the flooding that we've had, and I've climbed in people's basement that still had really bad smelling, ruined all of their personal belongings, the stuff that they've kept from when they were kids. When you see people devastated like that, you know that the city does important things and they better do it well. And you don't have to go start child care centers or, these other things in order to help families. We help families by staying in our lane and doing what we need to do well. And so when I was on the city council, we spent over $270 million on sewers in Des Moines. And that's something that I'm really, really proud of. And before I left, I kind of helped engineer the 1 cent sales tax to make sure that all those projects got done. Another $100 million or more that is in the pipeline to be finished, and finally take care of every house on every street in Des Moines.
That's fantastic. I think that's exactly the wheelhouse of city government. But you did take a break, and you spent several years away from serving on council. I'm sure that was probably kind of a shock to the system.
You do kind of get used to everybody wanting your time, and then everybody wondering, why is this guy here? It is shocking. I would say that for a million reasons that don't make sense, because the whole world kind of shut down at the same corresponding time because of the pandemic,
Right.
It made it a little bit easier on me. Nobody was getting together, and
Right.
I'm not really that patient on Zoom meetings, especially when there's 35 people talking at once. And so it was probably a good time for me to step away. What I have found is I could reflect on what I did well, what I wish I would have had time to do. And I came to the conclusion that I have a real focus, and I got more energy than ever to kind of control my own agenda and what I do there. What you find on the council is that stuff comes at you every 20 minutes, all day long, every day. And like a good business, the city and council people have to invest in R&D. All these smart companies, and you wonder why Amazon and Tesla and, great Coleman in Des Moines, other companies are doing so well. It's because they never stop thinking long-term and staying focused on what are we gonna do next. And at the city, that's hard to do because so many things come at you. You're constantly putting out fires. And so when I was thinking about rerunning, I said, if I do it, I want to control my time a little bit more. So I'm working proactively on the things that will really make a difference to the people of Ward 1.
So fair to say a little bit of time away was good to give you some perspective on how to approach the job if you went back on.
I think so. I also think just a break, and this is probably true of any industry or person. You do something and you make decisions for a while. Probably happens as parents even, that after you do it for a while, you start defending what you did instead of listening and trying to do it better next time.
Right.
And, so just kind of stepping away and saying, do I really need to defend that, or is there a better way to go about that and do it? I just love the fact that I've had a break, and I can take what I've learned, start new with even more energy than I've ever had.
During your years away from the council, did you completely blow off city issues and neighborhood involvement, or?
Well, no, I've stayed involved in my own neighborhood.
What have you been
I'm proud
doing?
to be an original member of the Beaverdale Neighborhood Association. Every month or month and a half, we've had meetings about trying to revitalize and rebuild Beaverdale Park, which is kind of one of the forgotten parks in town, not had any investment in decades, and it became a haven for some crime too. And so the first step was trying to just clean it up and make sure that we did things to drive crime away from that neighborhood, and that was fun. That's been really enjoyable. But I've also seen the city from a whole different perspective. I had a little bit more time to get on a bike, and I loved that, and I loved going out of my way and biking on city streets to kind of check them out. And at that speed, and I guess that low, you kind of see things and you realize there's streets and neighborhoods all over this city that we still have a lot of work to do. And so, that's been a real benefit. And I never anticipated it being training to return to council and try and be focused and strong, but I think it turned out to be.
Well, that's cool. Okay, now I did say I was going to get back to your 4 main points.
All right.
So when it comes to community, what would be an example of an initiative you might, propose and pursue as a member of the council to try and build community?
Well, this has a lot to do with the diversity and the new Americans that have chosen Des Moines as their home, which should give all of us a great pride. And so I want to make sure that as a community, everybody feels like they belong. That's important that we listen to people. Des Moines has always been known as being a very open government. Now that we're completely coming out of COVID, we got to open ourselves up and listen and engage with people. But I'm also really energetic about our parks, and I think our parks need a champion. When I first kind of started watching the city, there was a referendum vote of people in town that supported the Cubs' new stadium, which is now Principal Park. But it also had money reserved for every park in every neighborhood to get all new park equipment, and that was just such a great era for our parks and community, because people were out meeting their neighbors, making friends, kids making friends even before they got to kindergarten or preschool. But much of that equipment is, run down, old, tired, and we need a new commitment to that. And we need parks that just don't have, basketball and baseball, backstops, but that allow for games and activities for games played all over the planet.
Are you including your beloved pickleball in that?
I love pickleball. I am not good enough at pickleball to think that playing on an official pickleball court would be any better for me than a tennis court. So I'm probably not the one to say, we have to have, a huge amount of pickleball specific courts, because it wouldn't do me any good at all.
Our parks really do get used, and I love that. I love driving by parks and just seeing crowds of people using them. But it also makes me think maybe we need a few more of them here and there.
Yeah, trying to reserve a shelter in the city of Des Moines for a family reunion or a party is nearly impossible unless you're planning a long ways away, because people love the parks. And quite frankly, there's all kinds of reasons to do this, but one reason to do it is we live in a city where not very many people have a lake house. For a lot of families, the cost to go to Adventureland is out of range. Few people belong to Des Moines Golf and Country Club and haul their carload out to far west Des Moines. And so because of the income levels of many people in our community, we have an obligation to parks more than any other city to give people that kind of leisure, activity, fun, something to look forward to. And so I'm a big champion of our parks.
When it comes to civility, what would be an example of an initiative you might champion there to try and pursue that goal of greater civility?
Well, civility comes about first and foremost by having leaders that model it, because leaders really do set the culture, and if you are a leader, people follow you. And I think we live in a city where not only do people get elected to office, but they usually are pretty good leaders. And so individually, we need to model that, and I will. It's my own personal mission. When I sit in workshops or do different things and somebody says, "What's your mission?" It's always about modeling civility, and that's something that's really important to me. But there are ways and strategies to help grow it quicker. And that is making sure that you're inviting people to meetings that might disagree and making sure that they disagree in a respectful way. To give people a chance to speak and talk is a very dignified way to build civility, and that's something that we need to do. If I'm lucky enough to be elected, I'll be in every neighborhood and every community. I'll interact and engage with people from every culture so that they belong and they feel like Des Moines is their place. And the more that we feel like we own a place, the better we treat other people. And so I feel really strongly about that.
Let's talk about security for a minute or two, because that's on your big four there.
Yeah.
There too, what would be an example of what you might work on?
I think we see, lack of commitment to safety and security, and I don't mean policing.
You see it where?
I see that it's gotten more laxed here, and that people tend to talk to me on the campaign trail that they don't feel like Des Moines is quite as safe as it was 10 years ago. That there's kind of a slippery slope, and that slippery slope, takes us to places that you see on the news a lot.
Yeah. Cities
on the west and east coast that have mismanaged the little stuff. I believe in the broken glass theory, which is kind of like an urban planning deal where if you let the broken glass stay, then people continue to vandalize and ruin a building or a neighborhood more often. And so it's important to me that we do the little things well when it comes to security, keeping our streets safe. And that's traffic management. It's making streets walkable, having sidewalks, getting people out. It also means having police officers there that are humble servants to the community. And so that's part of it. But there's also some enforcement stuff that the city has been, not as aggressive on. And I think the citizens are calling on the council to back the police and stand with them so they enforce the rules that are on the books. And right now we really haven't stood behind the police as vocally as we need to so that they will do the things necessary to keep our streets and communities safe.
Now, at the same time, while you obviously really value the police, there are a lot of folks who worry about how the police use their power in the community.
Yes.
And so, would you be kind of one-sided in how you approach the police, or how would you view your role as a city council person vis-a-vis the police department of the city of Des Moines?
Well, number one, the vast majority of police officers in our town are amazing public servants. But the council is elected to be the oversight of services the city provides, and police might be the most important. And as a result, the one that we have to hold most to account for their actions. I want a police force that's humble, service-oriented, and accountable. And we have to find a good balance. You don't create a better police force by shouting and screaming and talking about all the things that you wish they were doing different. You create a better police force by investing in training, making sure we're hiring the best people, holding people accountable so that if they don't meet our standards, they're out and out quickly. We need a good partnership with what's called the Civil Service Commission that is kind of who has to give the approval for new employees to come in or employees to be fired. And there's times that employees are going to have to be fired and have been. That doesn't make the news much because it's not controversial, but the city does a pretty good job on that, and we need to have council members that are continuing to be committed to that.
Yeah. I remember one of the best experiences you and I had was a time that you and I rode along with officers during the night one night. And I've done that on another occasion. I know you have too. Would you commit to doing that on a regular basis as a council member?
I would commit to doing that. I think I remember the conversations we had after doing that, surprised by the kind of calls that people had. And it shaped my commitment of doing things inside the city. For instance, that was a big wake-up call for me about the struggles that people have with mental health in our community.
Yeah.
That was a decade and a half ago, but it was really important to kind of hear, not to hear what the police are saying about it, but to hear from the people they're being, that are calling in, looking for police to come help some situation. It is eye-opening, and I'll do it a lot.
Yeah. I got to interrupt with an anecdote of my own, even though I
Please.
know this shows you might recall that my boy and I did a ride along one night with the police, because that was back when he was kind of toying with the idea of thinking about working in law enforcement. And I got paired with an officer on the south side of town. Will got paired with an officer on the east side of town during Fair Week, so there was a lot going on over there. But anyway, I was with an officer on the south side of town, and he got a call that there was a car driving erratically on Fleur Drive. And we located the car, and he tried to pull the fellow over, and he was driving very erratically. Well, he then pulls like an illegal U-turn right in the middle of the street, almost crashed into us. But then he did pull over. Well, this fellow was convinced that he knew of a plot to kill President Obama, and he was on his way to the airport to save the president's life.
I totally forgot this story.
And wow, it really was a fascinating situation, because he obviously had some real problems. But to see the care that this officer used in calming the gentleman down, he did have to take him into custody, but he did so in such a calm, professional manner, and we got him calmed down. And I'm hopeful. I believe that they got him the kind of help he needed.
Yeah.
But it really brought home to me, wow, the challenges that our officers face out there. Now, at the same time, you and I do this in the middle of the night. And during the day, I hope these officers are out talking to people without calls going on, when they can form relationships and, get to know the people in the part of town they're patrolling and so forth. So I, like you, want a humble, friendly force that people feel comfortable going to when they are in those times of need.
Not to get off on a tangent, but I have to say that I'm disappointed in the way that the city and the school board chose not to have police school resource officers in the buildings anymore. It was a program that I was very proud of, and I thought the officers that were chosen to be there were stellar people that built great relationships with young people and helped change the view of the police. So I was very sad to see them not be there. It's a pretty proven strategy. I think every other school, high school in the metro area has one, but not the Des Moines high schools. And I think that is a program that we need to rebuild in some form, so that those positive relationships do exist.
Yeah. No doubt that the city council and the school board can and should work together closely on joint goals for building a better city.
Yeah.
One last thing about security, when you mentioned that, it reminds me of someone that you introduced me to recently, Angelo Thorne from the River Bend
Yes.
neighborhood. Fascinating person and a great member of the community there. And when I met Angelo told me about, a problem in that if a street light or two go out in that neighborhood, that can be a problem.
Right.
If you have good street lights, wow, what a difference that makes for security in your neighborhood. You can safely go out and put your garbage out or something. And if the lights are out, it's a problem. And some of the difficulties in getting that addressed. And, it was an interesting thing to hear about.
Right. The way people approach their personal safety is amazing. And it doesn't very often include police officers. Mm-hmm. And that's why the city has to be really committed to all those things. If you want to walk your dog at night and the city lets all the lights go out, you're going to be less apt to do that or to enjoy it. We want people to feel safe and enjoy the city.
It sure helps build community. Okay, I took too long on security. That leaves responsibility. I don't know if we're going too long, but maybe you could give us an idea of an initiative you might propose and pursue that is an example of pursuing that goal you have for responsibility. And I can't help but note, there was an article in the Register lately about the property tax rate in Des Moines being rather high compared to, surrounding communities. But anyway.
I think the one reason why the city should look to some experience is I was on the council in the 2008 downturn of the economy, and I think we're heading to the same kind of thing. Not only do we have businesses that are kind of leaving downtown that have been, the cash cow that have fueled a lot of the programs around the city, but we also just had the month with the lowest amount of houses sold in a long time, which means that property values aren't escalating, which means tax revenues aren't. And so the trick in terms of being responsible is how do you stay focused on the most important things that the city needs today? What are we going to need in 10 years that we kind of make sure that we don't ruin by cutting too much of that? And how can you do that without raising taxes on people when they're in the middle of their own kind of economic worries and anxiety? And that is something that takes a lot of skill, and it takes somebody that's willing to make really, really tough decisions, because the city won't be able to do everything that everybody wants us to do.
No way. Really?
We won't. And I will tell you, one of the things I'm most proud of is the city really had a great run when I was on the council. I feel confident about that most people believe that. But the property levy went down when I was on the council, and I was a voice to fight for that every time. When we raised taxes, I voted against it often. We need to make sure that we're providing a government that's affordable to our citizens, and we can't jump on every fad and new idea that's not proven and that doesn't make our community better.
No monorail for Des Moines?
You've always wanted the light rail out from downtown out. That would be great. I remember the first time I ran, I chuckled because I was running against a historic Des Moines guy named Jonathan Narcisse. And Jonathan was like, this will be funny because, back, he's like, somebody would talk about things and he would say, are you asking me if I want a 50-inch TV? Yeah, I want a 50-inch TV, but I can only afford a black and white 13-inch TV, and that's what I have.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to admit you got to live in your budget, and that is the hardest thing for politicians to do, who by nature want to make everybody happy.
And they're doing it with everyone else's money.
And they're doing it with other people's money. And I will tell you, I think our taxes are too high. I don't think there's a quick answer to that, but the solution long term is making sure we only do what our priorities, and we only tax our citizens what's necessary for that, and that we for sure do not raise the tax levy.
You did see that article in the Register?
I did. It's on my social media. I posted it like 3 days before. I paid my own taxes directly this time instead of escrowing them. And I took a picture of me paying them with this like shocked look on my face because I can't believe how much they are. And then I posted the story to say I feel it because they are high, and we need to do all we can to lower them.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Jonathan because what a great memory of. He had such a unique voice.
He did.
Oh
he
boy,
did.
What a character.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, I know I'm supposed to be your friend, but I got to spring a couple of
all right
things on you.
Let's do a little lightning round here.
Okay. Should people in Polk County vote for the airport bond?
Yes, they should.
And why?
Well, because the airport is owned by the city of Des Moines, and this is a chance that everybody in Polk County take responsibility for it. And I feel really strongly that that's the right way to go. That's number one. Number two is the airport is generally funded with a tax on everybody that flies in and out of the airport. So every airline ticket that you buy has a little surcharge that funds the airport that you're leaving. There's no property taxes that are spent at the Des Moines airport. That fee is paid by users. And if you're using the airport, you should pay for the new one. If you're not using the airport, like a lot of people in the city of Des Moines and a lot of people in Ward 1, they should not pay for it. And so this is a way to put the new airport terminal on the backs of people using it. And that's smart and wise and a good way to run a government. And we got to take advantage of this. I'm thankful Polk County stepped up to take the burden off of just the city of Des Moines and put it on everybody in the county because it's a regional facility.
Is there any way to make Dallas County chip in on it?
Well, that would be great. I'll take the whole county because too often, the Des Moines taxpayers have gotten, stuck with the bag of crap. And this is a time where we can share that with a lot of people.
Well, I mean, that's a foray into something I did want to touch on. Would you endeavor to use your time on the council, if you're allowed to rejoin it, on any regional issues or regionalization issues?
Yes, I think that's critical to the future of the region. I think we are in a period of time where most elected officials that are outside of Des Moines realize that their city is much less livable unless there's a strong core. And that includes everything from having a civic center that's cool to take guests to, which is owned by the taxpayers of Des Moines, or Principal Park, where there's a great ballpark, which is owned by the taxpayers of Des Moines, or the Science Center, or the Botanical Center, which is owned by the citizens of Des Moines, or the zoo that is owned by the taxpayers of Des Moines. It's important, and they recognize that we kind of got to be in this together, because for a long time, we've gotten the sweet end of the deal. We can show up, pay the same amount to go there, and they're not taxing us to do the capital improvements.
You're
and other
saying
things.
we, meaning folks who don't live in the city.
I'm saying, the people that live outside of the city.
Right.
And I love them coming here.
Oh, yeah.
My parents lived for a while in a townhouse outside of town. They needed to move into a one-story house out in Urbandale. And about the only times they ever came into Des Moines, were to go to nonprofit entities. Mm-hmm. The Civic Center, the hospitals, the activities that happen, churches. And so I embrace all that. I want people to come in. I want us to be the city people want to go to. And I'm more proud than ever that happens a lot. We have great restaurants. We had a new one open up this week on Ingersoll. Mm-hmm. People want to be here. But we have to share the burden, and that is the burden of the public facilities is like one chapter. But there's also a chapter of how do we take care of all the needs of people that have more needs from government, lower income people, people that need affordable housing, other things. That burden has to be shared too. And when I was on the council, and I'm going to return with the same point of view, that the suburbs can't systematically resist affordable housing. We need to help build it in every corner. And in particular, there's no concentration of working job wages in this area than the Jordan Creek area. Mm-hmm. Retail shops and stores, restaurants employ a lot of people at the lower end of the income spectrum, and there's nowhere really affordable for them to live in that area. And so what happens is they come to Des Moines and we try and provide DART to get them to their jobs. And it creates a burden on the taxpayers everywhere to not build affordable housing where the jobs are. And that needs to be a priority for us as a region.
Did you serve on any regional organizations last time on the council?
Well, that is a softball. Because I was at large, I had some time, and I really built relationships with suburban leaders. I'm still very proud to call them friends and allies, and I love working with them. I'm the only person in the metro ever to be elected to chair 3 regional boards, and I actually was 4. I chaired the Metro Waste Authority that does garbage in our landfill and recycling. We did all kinds of innovative things, and I was so proud of that. I chaired the Catch Des Moines Board, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, that does so much for telling the story of Des Moines and bragging us up to people all over the world. They do a great job. I chaired the Metro Planning Alliance, Metro Planning Organization, the MPO, that gets all the federal dollars for all kinds of road projects around town. And we solved road projects all over the metro. But I always had the right kind of relationships to make sure that Des Moines stuff got done first, because we had the lowest tax base. we needed the help of the federal funds the most. And we succeeded, all kinds of times. And the last one, maybe the most important one to me, is I started and chaired for several years the Regional Homeless Coordinating Council to make sure that we were doing the right things to not just provide service to the homeless, each day and in that day, but that we were also providing services and housing to get them out of that lifestyle and being stuck in a homeless state. We want people to climb the ladder and make a great life for themselves. And I felt like we were doing that pretty well. And that issue needs some more attention, and I'm looking forward to getting involved in that.
Well, Chris, I could talk to you all night about different topics. I got about 50 things I could rattle off and
We'll save them for the next episode.
give you my opinion and listen to your opinion, but that's probably about enough to give people a general overview of your campaign. And thanks for sitting down for a talk, and I look forward to the next one.
Well, I'd be remiss when the election's right around the corner, not to say that if you're watching this, I'm asking for your vote. I'm not just asking, I feel like I'm earning it. I'm working hard, I'm trying to be honest, and I'm gonna go represent you, and I won't let you down.
When's the election?
November 7th.
Is early voting open yet?
It is.
Aha, so they can go vote anytime.
If you can go vote at the county office on 2nd Avenue, there's satellite stations at some of the senior citizen centers. But if you want to get a paper ballot mailed to you, you got to request it by Monday, the 23rd.
This coming Monday, the 23rd of October?
Yeah.
Okay.
After that, there's no other chance than going to a remote voting site or voting on election day.
Okay.
Thank you.
High five, brother.